Never waste your feelings on those who do not value them. If a man casts gold into the sea, does the sea grow richer? No, the gold is lost, and the sea remains unchanged. So too with your emotions, if you offer them to those who neither recognize nor honor them, they are wasted. And yet, many go on, pouring the wealth of their hearts into hands that let it slip like sand. Consider this, your soul is a garden. Would you nourish weeds that choke the roots of virtue? Would you pour water endlessly onto barren ground? No rational man would. Yet when we give our kindness, our love, our trust to those who trample them without thought, we do just that. We cultivate what should be uprooted. The wise man does not close his heart, nor does he turn bitter, but he gives his affections as a steward, not a squanderer. He knows that emotions are not mere fleeting things but the movements of the soul. To waste them on those who are careless with them is to rob oneself. If a man is blind to the value of what you give, do not curse him. He sees only what he has trained himself to see, but do not persist in offering him what he does not cherish. Instead, reserve your heart for those who recognize its worth, just as the jeweler does not place pearls in the hands of children who would mistake them for stones. You owe no man your suffering. You owe yourself the discipline to guard your spirit from those who would waste it. To be unmoved by such people is not cruelty, but wisdom. Walk away not in anger, but in understanding. The river does not rage when it changes course, it simply flows where it must. Emotions are the wealth of the soul, the silent language of the heart, the unseen yet deeply felt force that shapes our lives. To waste them on those who neither see their worth nor cherish their presence is to cast gold into the sea, hoping it will be retrieved. Yet, how often do men and women give the best of themselves to those who respond with indifference? How many pour their kindness, love, and sincerity into hearts that remain unmoved, as if such gifts were nothing but dust upon the wind? A man does not offer his bread to a stone, nor does he seek warmth from ice. But when it comes to the matters of the heart, reason is often drowned by hope. We wish to be seen, to be valued, to have our emotions reflected back with equal sincerity. Yet not all are capable of such understanding, and to expect it from those who do not hold such capacity is to invite disappointment. A fool will look upon gold and see nothing more than metal, just as the ungrateful will take the kindness of others and feel no obligation to honor it. The wise do not harden their hearts, but neither do they throw open their gates to those who trample upon their trust. They understand that emotions are not an endless well from which all may drink without consequence. There is a cost to giving it. To care deeply is to risk pain. To love is to make oneself vulnerable. But this does not mean that one should close themselves off entirely. It means that one must learn discernment, to recognize when one's affections are misplaced, when one's sincerity is wasted upon those who take but never give in return. There are those who will demand your presence yet never offer theirs when you need them. There are those who will take your kindness and interpret it as weakness, who will see your willingness to understand as an invitation to take advantage. Such people do not deserve the depth of your emotions, for they see them as nothing more than conveniences, tools to be used and discarded when they no longer serve a purpose. It is not cruelty to withdraw from such people, it is wisdom. To continue giving to those who do not value your emotions is not an act of love, it is self-betrayal. Just as the river does not grieve when it changes course, so too must one learn to let go without sorrow. Not all will understand your heart, not all will recognize the sincerity you offer, and that is not your burden to carry. The man who knows his worth does not beg to be seen. The woman who values her soul does not plead for love where there is none. To cherish your emotions is to honor yourself, and to give them only where they will be treasured is the duty of all who understand the value of the heart. The heart is not an open market where anyone may come and take as they please. It is a sacred space, a treasury of emotions, desires, and affections that must be given with care. To throw it before those who do not value it is to be careless with one's own soul. A wise man does not leave his home unguarded, nor does he scatter his wealth upon the streets for strangers to take. Yet, in matters of the heart, how often do people give without thought, hoping that one day their love will be recognized, their kindness will be repaid, their sincerity will be understood. But not all who receive are worthy, and not all who take will ever give in return. To love, to care, to feel deeply is not a weakness, but a responsibility. Just as a gardener tends to his plants with patience and discernment, choosing where to plant and what to uproot, so too must one guard the heart with wisdom. Not all soil will bear fruit, not all hands that reach for your affections do so with good intentions. There are those who will take without gratitude, who will consume your emotions and leave you empty. There are those who see kindness as a weakness, who mistake patience for servitude, who assume that your willingness to give means they are entitled to take without limit. A steward does not squander what has been placed in his care. He does not waste his resources on barren ground, nor does he leave his wealth exposed to thieves. So too must one be mindful of where their emotions are placed. If a man continually gives to those who do not value his love, his kindness, or his loyalty, he will soon find himself depleted, hollow, questioning whether his emotions ever had worth at all. But the problem does not lie in his feelings, it lies in their misplacement. A jewel given to one who sees only stone is wasted. A fire lit in the presence of those who feel no warmth is soon extinguished. To guard one's heart is not to be cold or unfeeling. It is not to withhold love out of fear, nor to build walls so high that no one may enter. It is to be deliberate, to understand that the heart is not an endless well but a vessel that must be filled as well as emptied. If one gives and gives without receiving in return, they will be left with nothing. If one continually seeks validation from those who do not care, they will find themselves exhausted, desperate for even the smallest sign of recognition. But why should one beg for what should be freely given? Why should one plead for love from those who are indifferent? To be a steward of one's emotions is to choose wisely, to give where it will be cherished, and to walk away from those who see no value in what is offered. It is not cruelty, it is self-respect. A man does not water a tree that bears no fruit, nor does he continue feeding a fire that only burns him. Yet, when it comes to matters of the heart, how often do people give their love, their patience, their time to those who only take and never give in return? To invest in a relationship that drains rather than nourishes, that depletes rather than uplifts, is to willingly offer oneself to suffering. It is not love that demands one to remain in places where their soul is diminished, it is attachment, and attachment without wisdom is a slow poison. There are those who give endlessly, believing that their sacrifice will one day be appreciated, that their endurance will lead to recognition, but what is given to the wrong hands is never truly valued. A heart poured out to those who do not care is like rain falling upon stone, and no matter how much it gives, nothing will grow. Love is meant to bring warmth, not leave one standing in the cold. Affection is meant to be shared, not drained until nothing remains. If a relationship leaves you questioning your worth, if it demands all of you but offers nothing in return, then it is not love, it is an unbalanced exchange that will leave you empty. A man who continues to drink from a poisoned well will grow sick, yet many continue to return to relationships that drain their spirit, believing that if they give just a little more, things will change. But one cannot fill a broken cup, one cannot nourish a bond that was never built on mutual care. To hold on to something that harms is to betray oneself, to place the needs of another above the well-being of one's own heart. A person who values you will never leave you in doubt, will never make you feel as if your emotions are a burden to be endured rather than a gift to be treasured. There is no virtue in suffering for those who do not see your worth. There is no honor in remaining where your emotions are dismissed, your kindness is taken for granted, your love is met with indifference. To walk away is not an act of cruelty, but of wisdom. A flower does not bloom in poisoned soil, nor does a heart flourish in an environment where it is neglected. If something brings you more pain than joy, more emptiness than fulfillment, then it is not something worth holding on to. Not all relationships are meant to be kept. Not all people are capable of reciprocating the depth of feeling you offer. To invest in someone who does not value your emotions is to invest in loss, to nourish something that only consumes you. There is no shame in choosing yourself. There is no weakness in withdrawing from that which harms. The only mistake is to stay, to continue giving to those who have already shown they do not cherish what you offer. A man does not argue with the wind nor plead with the tide to change its course. He understands that nature moves as it will, indifferent to his desires. So too must one learn that not all hearts will match the depth of their own, and not all people will value the emotions offered to them. To recognize this and walk away is not cruelty, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that one's energy, love, and care should not be wasted where they are neither seen nor appreciated. The wise man does not chase what continually eludes him, nor does he beg for affection from those who give only indifference in return. Many remain in places where they are not valued, hoping that persistence will turn disregard into recognition, that patience will transform coldness into warmth. But the heart is not a thing to be bargained with, nor should one lower themselves in pursuit of what should be freely given. Affection that must be begged for is not true affection, and love that is taken for granted is no love at all. If a person does not see your worth, no amount of giving, waiting, or sacrificing will change their blindness. To continue offering yourself to such a person is not an act of love, it is a surrender of dignity. Indifference is often mistaken for cruelty, but there is a difference between coldness and wisdom. To walk away does not mean to close one's heart to love or to become hardened by bitterness. It simply means understanding that some battles are not worth fighting, that some people will never change, and that one's emotions deserve to be placed where they will be honored. A man who values himself does not remain where he is only tolerated. He does not allow himself to be an option to someone for whom he makes a priority. There is peace in learning to let go. There is strength in accepting that not all connections are meant to last. The wise do not waste their breath convincing others of their worth, nor do they linger in places that diminish them. If someone does not appreciate your presence, your kindness, or the depth of your feelings, the greatest response is not anger, not pleading, but silence. To remove yourself without resentment, to refuse to fight for what should be willingly given, is the ultimate act of self-respect. Nothing is lost by leaving behind those who do not value you. The heart that walks away from neglect and indifference does not grow weaker, it grows lighter, unburdened by the weight of unreciprocated affection. Those who truly care will never make you question your place in their life. And for those who do not, your absence will teach them what your presence could not. To choose yourself is not selfishness. To be indifferent to those who disregard your emotions is not cruelty, it is wisdom. And wisdom is the highest form of strength. A man may hold gold in his hands, yet if he sees only dull metal, its value is lost on him. So too with emotions, and no matter how deeply one loves, how sincerely one gives, or how patiently one endures, it will mean nothing to those who do not recognize its worth. People do not fail to see because they lack eyes, they fail to see because they lack appreciation. To expect recognition from those who do not value the emotions offered to them is to wait endlessly for rain in a desert. It is not a flaw of the giver that some do not cherish what they receive. A blind man does not reject the light, he simply cannot see it, but the sun does not dim itself for those who cannot perceive its brilliance. Likewise, one should not diminish their emotions, nor question their worth, simply because another fails to acknowledge them. Some people are incapable of understanding the depth of what is given to them, not because it lacks value, but because their hearts are not tuned to such frequencies. They move through life taking, never considering what is being offered, never pausing to reflect on what they have been given. A person who does not value kindness will always see it as weakness. A person who does not cherish loyalty will take it for granted. A person who does not understand love will see it as something to be used rather than something to be honored. No matter how much one gives, no matter how much one proves their sincerity, it will always fall upon deaf ears when given to the wrong person. One cannot teach appreciation to those who have never learned to cherish. One cannot force recognition from those who are blind to everything except their own desires. There is no wisdom in exhausting oneself for those who will never acknowledge the effort. The painter does not weep when the blind do not admire his art, nor does the musician grow bitter when the deaf do not hear his song. He creates, not for those who cannot see or hear, but for those who can appreciate his work. Likewise, emotions should be given where they will be treasured, where they will be met with the same sincerity in return. It is not an act of love to remain in places where one's heart is overlooked, it is an act of self-betrayal. Some people will only realize the worth of what they had once it is gone, but one must not wait for absence to teach them what presence could not. The wise do not waste time trying to convince others of their value. They do not beg for recognition or chase after those who are indifferent. Instead, they give where it is appreciated, love where it is reciprocated, and walk away from those who remain blind, not out of resentment, but out of understanding that no amount of effort can make a person see what they refuse to acknowledge. Pain is not proof of love, nor is suffering a debt to be paid in exchange for someone's attention. No one is entitled to your sacrifice, least of all those who do not value what you offer. Yet, how often do people remain in relationships that bring them nothing but exhaustion, hoping that their endurance will one day be rewarded? How many continue to give, even as they are depleted, believing that their suffering is necessary to prove the depth of their emotions? But to suffer for someone who does not cherish your heart is not love, it is self-neglect. There is no honor in staying where you are unappreciated. To allow yourself to be drained, to let your emotions be taken for granted, is to place another's indifference above your own well-being. Your heart is not an altar upon which you must burn yourself to keep another warm. If someone does not see your worth, if they dismiss your kindness, your patience, your love, then they are unworthy of what you offer. It is not your duty to endure pain for those who would not lift a hand to ease yours. Peace is not something that is given, it is something that must be protected, and to protect it, one must know when to walk away. There is no wisdom in staying where love is absent, where your emotions are met with indifference, where your presence is merely tolerated. To leave is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. A man does not remain in a burning house simply because he once called it home. A woman does not hold on to thorns, hoping they will one day bloom into roses. Pain that serves no purpose should not be held on to out of habit or fear. Many fear that by walking away, they are giving up. But what is truly being given up? A one-sided effort? A bond that has only drained, never nourished? The idea that love must come with suffering is a falsehood that traps many in places they were never meant to stay. Love should not demand your misery. It should not ask you to lose yourself for the sake of someone who would not do the same in return. To love oneself is to refuse to stay in a place that harms the soul. No one has the right to demand your suffering. If they do not value your emotions, they do not deserve your presence. It is not selfish to put yourself first, it is necessary. To protect your peace is not to build walls against love, but to ensure that love is given where it will be honored. The world does not reward those who diminish themselves for others, it rewards those who understand their worth and refuse to waste it. There is no greater act of self-respect than choosing your own well-being over the approval of those who do not appreciate you.